Or does, when we move into like we declare a local disaster, what legal power do we have to waive any, we have a host of regulations out there that, like Supervisor McCowan said, we're probably facing a severe water crisis, which is going to be maybe an emergency to a magnitude was greater than our fires last year, because first of all, it's going to affect more people's lives. The fires pretty much, they were out there in the rural areas, and where this drought is going to affect everybody's lives every day, and all the kids and everything. So what powers, if you go into emergency declaration, does, like Tom, who's and the sheriff, to waive, to get around certain types of, like if we found a water source that we could use and go get some water, do we have to go through a water rights process before we can draw that water? Or what powers under emergency declaration do we have to waive some of that regulatory process that may hold you up for weeks and months or even years? I mean, I realize, they do it when there's wildland fires all the time. You have these regulations about not crossing stream zones with your equipment and whatnot, but they just basically throw them out the window because they need to get the equipment across. So they do it. But so what power do we have at the local level to do that, to do the things that are necessary to get us out of the emergency? Because, you just can't sit back and say, well, we'll wait till the federal government to send us some money. Right. That doesn't get it. I mean, there's some things that we could be doing now when it comes to this pending drought, and it's a problem. So, County Council, would you care to?
Yeah, we do have the ability to issue orders and regulations that protect property and life and safety, those kinds of things. Yeah. We also have the ability to suspend bidding requirements for construction-type repairs. We also have the ability to issue, the sheriff has the ability to issue orders regarding, the sale of goods and allowing folks to make a profit on the particular disaster, and those kinds of things. But specific to your question, do we have the right to go take water from some other area? I think we'd have to make a real clear finding that would be, for the protection of life and safety of the citizens and or property.
Do you think that finding would be hard to make?
Well, I'm not really sure. It would depend on the circumstance. I mean, most of the issues that we deal with in normal state of emergencies deal with, making sure folks are out of their homes if there are floods or fires and those kinds of things. So and we would have to look into that.
Well, kind of, locally, here we are in a situation where probably to get our basic water needs, we're going to have to haul in some water from someplace. And with these new air quality rules coming on, we actually have less water trucks in this county than we did last year, because the guys are trying to get rid of them because they know they won't meet the new air quality standards. So our regulatory process is already hindering our ability to meet a pending disaster. That's just one example. And then if we get into 2010, if we had a water emergency or even a fire emergency, about 95% of our water trucks that have the ability to transport water, will be illegal to operate. So that's a real concern of mine. That's coming up not this summer, but next summer. So, I don't think nobody looked that far ahead with these, but it's a severe problem in this county. And I don't think there's many guys out there that use a water truck a couple of months out of the year that have the money to go out and buy a $150,000 new truck. And it's going to outlaw all the existing trucks we have. Every truck that we used to fight fires last summer, next year will be illegal to even put on the road.
I have not met with the water board chairman, whatever his title is, Mr. Sanford. I have a meeting with him and with county council this week to discuss what he has in mind and start thinking about contingency plans and seeing what we're going to be doing about this water situation. I know that when we think about water, we think about drinking water, but I, being a fireman, think about, well, if we don't have water in the hydrants, what are we gonna do for fire service. So, any other comments or questions? Okay.
That's a good point. For instance, in Redwood Valley, when they go to cut off the ag water, which I suppose they're gonna do it here right in the next few days, about half of the hydrants they have out there will be non-serviceable because they're tied to their ag system. Sure.
I thank you for all your comments, Mr. Chair, and that's why I'm extremely nervous about how we go forward. We need to have plans. The forest fires of last summer, if we get those dry lightning storms and we have no water, I know they were dipping out of Lake Pillsbury, they were dipping water out of Mendocino, there's livestock ponds, there's fire ponds in the hills, fire hydrants. It goes on and on. We have a pending crisis. I've been a local community volunteer for well over 3 decades, and emergency planning, I've taken part in those through those years for my communities, different communities I've lived in, last 3 decades, mainly Potter Valley. And whether it's earthquake or whatever, plans need to be made now, so we can deal with what we're going to have to deal with. It's not a disaster happening and then planning.
Correct.
And we need to get very serious about it and work forward. And the planning needs to come. The county has to be a leader. Has to be a leader.
Okay, one more topic, one of my favorite topics, media. What the media is, the media can be the best friend you ever had in a disaster. They can be the source of information. They can be they can be part of your intelligence gathering group that will provide you with information. And oftentimes, we learn things about our disasters from watching the television. They're in the EOC. Okay? They also are very anxious and very committed to putting out information to the public. And as I said before, we need to make sure that they have concise, credible information. And we need to make available to them photo opportunities, interview opportunities. We need to keep them in the loop with media information lines. This last summer, we set up 2 different lines, one dedicated specifically to media, where they could call one number and receive an actual live person to give them the most current information about the disaster that we had. We also had a public information line that the public could call and get the most up-to-date, accurate information about what was happening. Granted, there were questions that we were receiving that we could not answer, and that the people who staff these lines need to know that. The media needs to know that. We may not know all the answers, but the media can be our a great asset to us. That's where a good PIO, a well-trained PIO who is experienced in handling the media is most valuable to us. The information going out to the public, when you're queried by either the media or the public during a disaster about the disaster, you need to have the most current, up-to-date, accurate information about the event, so that you can give that level of confidence to the public or the person asking you. And to add estimates of your own or conjecture or personal items about what's going on, it can be very damaging. The message that we get out from the EOC needs to be approved. It needs to go through the director of the EOC. He needs to approve that through the PIO. And by managing this information as it goes out to the media, we instill confidence in the public instead of creating